Welcome to, I think, probably the most provocatively titled session of the day. The news is broken, but we know how to fix it. Orit and I will be having an unconference session later. The heating is broken and we'd like someone to fix it. And I'm sorry I've got my coat on, but I literally couldn't write down questions if I didn't do that. So, yes, welcome. What is WikiTribune? I have to say, I probably didn't really have any idea what WikiTribune was until about April at a little unconference session in Copenhagen, where we'd gone into a room to talk about kind of audience conversation, and there was a guy there who I thought was vaguely familiar, who I had seen at sessions before maybe, didn't know who he was, and it turned out it was Jimmy Wales, and he was talking about this new initiative. I'm not going to steal Orit's thunder on this, but essentially, for a little bit of background context, it is an open collaborative platform where journalists and volunteers work together. And I think that's probably where the questions at the end are going to come in. So I'm going to hand over to Orit Kopel, who is the co-founder and vice president of WikiTribune. She's also CEO of the Jimmy Wales Foundation, and she has got a slide deck to take us through to explain in a little more detail how this is going to work, and then we'll have a chat and there'll be questions at the end. Thank you very much, Orit.
Hi everyone. Is the mic working? Oh yeah, it does. So I'm here to talk about how the news is broken, but the heating is broken. So I kind of tempted to talk about that. It looks much warmer than it actually is. So I'm Orit Kopel, as you can see. Okay, my presentation is up. I would like, first of all, to thank you for inviting me to speak here. I'm very honored to speak in Cambridge. It made my mother very happy. It's not a PhD, but it's close enough. So a little bit on myself, I'm, as you can hear by my Gal Gadot accent, I'm from Tel Aviv originally. I've been the CEO of the Jimmy Wales Foundation for the past couple of years, where we advocate for bloggers and social media users who get persecuted for speaking out their mind online. I know that journalists have a lot of organizations behind them, and they have you to back them up if something happens, but a lot of people are just using social media to speak out and having some political discourse and found themselves in prison. They don't have anyone to turn into. So that's what we've done. My background is in human rights law. But actually, as a kid, my dream was to become a journalist. I'm going to share with you a story that I actually never shared before. When I graduated, before I graduated, I completed my mandatory military service as an Israeli. I was very young. I was already running a very successful blog in Israel with a lot of readers. I had thousands of subscribers. Every post that I uploaded had hundreds of comments and so on. And my dream was actually to become a journalist, but I didn't know what to do exactly. I was almost 20 years old, and I was contacted by an editor that I had some journalists apparently reading my blog, and he connected me to a very senior editor in Israel, a very known journalism personal in Israel, and they actually made up a phone call between me and him, and I was very excited. He's a known figure, and I felt like it's going to be my first step in journalism. We talked over the phone, and he said, okay, I was reading a few pieces that you wrote, and you're obviously very talented, but, and there's always a but after that, right? Your generation. And he said, your generation, you just write something up and publish it for the people to read. And that's it, you don't have the process. When I write something, I write it down. I think about it, I put it in my drawer. I wake up the next day, I reread it, and then I check the words I wrote, and I change it, and I think about it, and after a week, maybe I change it, and I give something, and then I publish, and then the people read about it. But your generation, so let me take a pause here and tell you about which generation he's talking about. We're talking about early 2000s. So that's not the social media. That's actually before Twitter was created, before Facebook was created, I was writing a blog. So that was even not a weblog of a video, because YouTube wasn't created in the early 2000s. He was talking about the generation. I mean, I didn't grow up on the internet. When I needed to write an essay for school, I actually had to go to a library, and open a real actual book with paper and everything. But I was still, even back then, I was that generation that everything is quick, and you write something and you publish and you immediately get the comments, and that was a new concept back in early 2000. And he said, you don't have the process, and I actually don't really like it. It's obviously the old-fashioned one. And I was thinking, okay, maybe you're right. I don't know, I was very young. And then he told me a sentence that actually went along with me for years later. He actually asked, why, I mean, you want to be a journalist, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I want to write, my opinion about current events and so on. He's like, why would anyone care about what you have to say? So what I should have answered to him back then was, well, I have thousands of followers. I have thousands of readers. I have hundreds of people commenting on every piece I publish. Obviously, people care about what I have to say. But I was young and insecure, and I was like, maybe he's right. Why would anyone care about what I have to say? And I hung up the phone after that call and went to law school. That's the story. That's just a story. So a decade later, I guess the destiny chases you, and I have the privilege of working on a new and exciting project called WikiTribune, and I'm going to speak about it right now. So not only the heading, but also the news is broken. That's Jimmy West, the founder of Wikipedia, whom I have the privilege of working with him on this project. I'm going to show you a short video from our successful launch campaign of crowdfunding in April. You said you didn't hear about WikiTribune before April. Well, no one did, except for me and Jimmy. We just launched that on April. Hopefully, it's going to give you a little background about what we do.
The news is broken, but we figured out how to fix it. See, before the internet, we could only get our news from traditional news organizations. Editors, fact-checkers, and reporters were the gatekeepers of news, and we trusted them to tell the truth. We even paid for them to tell the truth. That's how much we respected the news. Then the news went online, and suddenly we wanted it all for free, and we wanted advertisers to pay for it. This is a problem. Because ads are cheap, competition for clicks is fierce, and low-quality news sources are everywhere. Social media, where most people get their news these days, is literally designed to show us what we want to see, to confirm our biases, and to keep us clicking at all costs. It fundamentally breaks the news. And the truth is, on the internet, no one is guarding the gate. So it's time to rethink the gatekeeper, and we call it WikiTribune. WikiTribune is a new site with a new model for the news. It takes professional, standards-based journalism and incorporates the radical idea from the world of Wiki that a community of volunteers can and will reliably protect the integrity of information. Articles are authored, fact-checked, and verified by professional journalists and community members working side by side as equals, and supported not by advertisers, but by readers who care about good journalism enough to become monthly supporters. There's no paywall, so anyone can read WikiTribune. Anyone can flag or fix an article and submit it for review. As the facts are updated, the news becomes a living, evolving artifact, which is what the internet was made for. WikiTribune is launching advertising free, created by professionals, and supported and verified by the people who care most about the news: volunteers, supporters, you. So sign up now to support WikiTribune. It's time to fix the news.
So I actually discussed that in the reception. The fact that the hardest audience I have is journalists, because they always feel offended when we say that the news is broken. It's not you, it's the model. So the problem is that traditional news outlets, obviously, you are heavily dependent on ad revenue and practically losing the battle against the speed of social media. That creates a series of problems. As you can see, the clickbait headlines followed by very poor content. I don't need to teach you, you're the editors that are doing it. I'm kidding. But you can see a lot of clickbait headlines that you probably know. I actually saw this week one of 15 women that actually exist in real life. I really hope I'm on that list. I desperately hope so. So those clickbait, they attract us to obviously just have the clicks. So a lot of, I don't want to say you, but a lot of editors just need the clicks to get the revenue. So it just drives a lot of publishers to not care enough about the content, because all they need is just to click the headline afterwards, do whatever. And there's the problem with the speed, as I said. So you have to fastly, publish things. So fast publication of unverified fact. The biased reporting, the radical discourse that obviously again attracts people to click on articles, and then the filter bubble that brings us the biased news that we want to read rather than the neutral information that we need to consume in order to really know what's going on in the world. We can see in the last decade a shift from traditional, radio and print towards consumption of news through social media and online outlets. I'm sorry that I'm jumping from one radiator to another. I'm freezing. So we can see this movement. It starts with, or ends, it's the chicken and egg, with the lack of public trust in the media. That gets a lot of readers just look for alternative sources, and that switches them back to social media, where those problems are actually amplified, and it feeds each other. So the news is definitely broken, but don't panic, we figured out a way to fix it. So what is WikiTribune? WikiTribune is an inventive news platform which evolves journalism in a way that has never been done before, by bringing together a wiki-style community of volunteers and hired professional journalists in an effort to create a collaborative news space, a high-quality open platform which is genuinely community control and has the backbone of professional journalism. We start with our business model. We wanted to fix a business model because we think that's a source. As Jimmy always says, I built my career based on a series of good ideas and bad business decisions. So we launch with no ads and no paywall. We fully rely on a voluntary subscription model where people who believe in our vision choose to pay a monthly subscription to support our journalism, fact-based model. It also means that every person online have full access to read everything on our website. And moreover, every community member is encouraged to initiate, author, fact-check, verify, and improve the articles on our website. On a wiki-style platform, as you can right now go on Wikipedia and edit every entry, we want that model to apply on WikiTribune and allow all our community members to edit our website. We actually attend our community volunteers and the professional journalists as equals. I know that's a very hard concept to accept, especially when you are a professional journalist. But I'm here to explain how it's going to work. The quality control, I get that asked a lot. So we're going to actually have both our hired team and our community volunteer working on moderating both the articles and the community. How many of you have edited entries on Wikipedia? Oh, we have a few. So you probably know that Wikipedia doesn't hire a lot of people to moderate it, but you have people growing from the community and becoming admins, and they actually have the power to lock entries or partially lock them, so only certain people can edit it. They can block trolls, and because that's the first question I always get, what do you do with the trolls? And so on. So we hopefully going to build a community that's going to be self-moderated, but our journalists, we want them to focus on actually doing journalism rather than working and moderating the community itself. But we're going to have both doing that. We have the unique value coming from both sides. So as you can see, it's very similar to Wikipedia, but it is a different model to Wikipedia because journalism is different than an encyclopedia in many ways. So we do need a backbone of the professional journalists. Professors just have better access to sources. So if we need to interview, let's say, Obama, we probably can rely on our community volunteers to manage to arrange such an interview. I don't think prominent people, politicians, and so on, will be willing to just give an interview to a random person saying, I want to write it for WikiTribune. So our journalists have access to those sources. They're going to have greater cooperation from formal figures. They have the professional experience that needed in order to produce high quality journalism. I met a lot of journalists that actually were offended by the other idea that someone who's not a trained professional journalist can do journalist work. I don't mean to undermine the profession of journalism at all. If we did, we wouldn't hire professional journalists. We do recognize how important it is to be professional ones. But there are some parts of journalism that civil journalism, as it's called, that just general volunteers can use their own specialism in order to develop. The last part of the unique value of our higher professional journalists is dedicated time. So let's say if there is a fire in Grenfell Tower, we can send our volunteers to cover the story, but we actually pay our journalists so we can tell them, okay, you two go and cover the story right now. And that's very important in journalism, as you know, as editors, to have that ability to send someone in a timely manner to actually cover it right now. On the other hand, that's the unique part. This side is the unique part of WikiTribune, is our community, and that's a huge advantage. What they're bringing is, first of all, the wisdom of the masses. Many times, we talk a lot about diversity in the newsroom and so on. We're going to have, hopefully, a very big community of people that can bring different angles, can bring different specialism of their own expertise. They have the numbers, they have the geographical distribution. And one part that's very important in the way that the news is working is neutrality. So they can supervise that. They can read the articles and flag parts where it's not neutral. Those of you that raise their hands when I ask if they edit Wikipedia, you probably are aware of the talk page of every entry on Wikipedia. There are a lot of very sensitive articles on Wikipedia where there was a very, very long debate about how to even name the entry. Let's say the security fence separation wall in Israel. So some wanted to call it the apartheid wall, some security fence, and eventually they found out a solution after a long debate of how to make it more neutral as encyclopedia. So this is a very important debate that it's much easier to flag and make with a big community rather than in a small newsroom of a traditional outlet. So this is the core values of WikiTribune. First of all, transparency. We want to bring some additional layer of transparency to what we now see on journalism. So let's say if we publish an interview, we don't want to only publish the interview itself, the edited version. Professional journalists that actually knows how to tell the story, but also have the raw data added to it, let's say the transcript or even the recording of the full interview itself. That way our community volunteers can actually listen to the entire, if they want to, they can listen to the entire interview and say, you know what, this was actually, you quoted him correctly, but on this context, it actually means something else, and make the article itself better and more accurate. And that's a way that we can give more tools to our community to make our entries better. The neutrality, I mentioned it before, that fact-based, unbiased journalism, it's going to be very closely monitored by a community. They can flag out any parts where we're not neutral. I must say that in addition to my degree in law, I also eventually studied journalism and communication. And the one thing that I learned from my degree is that there isn't such a thing as a completely neutral news story, because everything is in some aspect biased. The language that you use, the fact that you used to write it in English. Your point of view is always it's always going to be a part of the story itself. So complete neutrality is literally impossible. But you're as editors, so you know that if you have a story, so the journalist is reading the story, you, maybe another editor is going through, so you have maybe 2, 3, 4 sets of eyes going through every story before you publish and making it better. We're going to have big community, maybe potentially hundreds of people reading every article, and actually have the ability to edit it and make it better and make it more neutral. That's a huge factor in making things more neutral, having more eyes going through everything and change it in a different perspective. So we can make it completely neutral, we can strive for it, and that's one way to do it. We want to be more, reliability is one of our values, verification of sources. Unlike in Wikipedia, where everyone can edit and it's immediately published, we can't really do that. You're all obviously aware of the legal problems with that. So we are going to have people with a little bit more privileges to check the articles before they are published. They're not necessarily going to be one of our hired editors, but we're going to have trusted community members currently, because we just launched. So it's going to go through our senior editors before things are published, but everyone can actually edit, but it's going to wait in queue until some trusted member is going to go through and verify. Originality, we can't really battle against the New York Times. We currently only have 10 journalists, so obviously we're not going to be the first, but we want to offer something different. We want to be original. We're going to bring the unique angle of every story. Let's say a few months ago there was a story about a Russian spy that was assassinated with poison. You know what I'm talking about. So the first thing Jimmy told me was like, I'm kind of intrigued to know which poison they used. Was it used before? This angle that wasn't quite covered by traditional media. So we want to find those angles, and it might be a little bit geeky, but we are geeks, we like those angles, and I think there is room for that. We want to be, and that's the quality part of it, we want to bring meaningful stories. We want to be the opposite of clickbait headlines. We want people, on clickbait headlines, you click on it. I just saw clickbait headlines of 100 Simpsons tattoos that don't really have the Simpsons in them. That's a true headline. You can Google that, and I'm like, so people do click because that's like so absurd that you kind of want to know what they meant by it, and you feel like you wasted the last 2 minutes of your time reading that. So we want to be exactly the opposite. We want people to read into articles and feel like they gain something substantial by reading it. They gain something, they learn something new. And we want them to subscribe because they feel like they want this, there is a justification for this kind of journalism to exist. The last point is actually diversity. which was mentioned again, because I know that all of you are worried and you want to make a difference and make newsrooms more diverse, gender-wise, but also cultural diversity. Obviously, when we're going to integrate the community in the process of producing the news, we're going to have more background. We're going to encourage that to have people from more background, from more cultures taking part and bringing their own point of view and bringing their own experiences into it. I had this discussion in the reception yesterday about the disconnection between the readers and the way they perceive the media is something that's very far away, and they don't feel represented by the media. They don't feel it's part of them. The media is has such an important role in every functioning democracy, and it's the mediator between the leadership and the people, and they need to feel like the media is actually protecting them. And I think integrating, our model is actually the bridge that needs to be taken these days in order to not only bring back the trust of the public, but actually bringing them into it and feel like a more identification between them. It's very important for me to say to an audience of journalists that we're not here to replace the traditional news, we're here to add to it. I'm not here criticizing anything that you're doing. There are such amazing journalists everywhere, and we just think the business model and the general model needs to be fixed, and we want to bring something else that's gonna add to it and maybe bring a new spirit to it. So our that's just a summary. That's our values, hopefully going to bring back the trust in journalism with the backbone of professional journalists. Do we have time?
Massively, if we're going to get some questions in as well. We're going to need to get some questions in as well.
So is that a yes or no?
No, you don't have time.
We don't have, so that's I didn't understand from the question if it's yes or not. I'm Israeli. I need an answer. I don't understand hints. Just tell me directly what you think.
Stop talking.
I'm not offended. Take a quick look about the differences between us and Wikipedia. The basic difference is that Rigor News, Wikipedia is an encyclopedia with everything that comes with it. That's us, and where we are right now is with that we had soft launch in late October, so you actually can see us online and become members and edit. We have some, that's the last one, presence, so it's not yet fully developed all over there, but we have an editors around the globe to cover. So last point I'm going to say is that Wikipedia changed the world by bringing together people from all over the world to collaborate and share their joint knowledge, and that created the greatest encyclopedia on earth. Hopefully WikiTribune is going to add something new to this sphere of journalism by integrating community in the process of creating the news. I'm here to answer any question you might have. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I'm going to be able to answer. Be kind. I'm saying that because the hardest audiences I had were journalists that felt offended. I'm not here to offend. Again, we're just going to enrich the journalism world. Thank you very much.
Great. You want to sit down or stay there? Just some quick questions. If you've got a question, stick your hand up in the air and a mic will find you. But in the meantime, I'm going to do a brass tacks thing. I am British and talking about money is awkward. But how much a month for a subscriber, and how much, at what point financially are you a success?
So we actually had a very successful crowdfunding April that allowed us to hire 10 journalists, small tech team, and our fabulous editor, Peter Bale, that I'm sure most of you know. The average contribution is actually a monthly subscription of £9. I must say something about it. before we launched the crowdfunding, we were warned by people that we shouldn't expect more than 10% of our supporters to actually have a monthly subscription. And I'm talking about April, before we publicly launched, so they didn't even have a product. And eventually, you would be surprised to hear that around 50% of our support was in the form of monthly subscription. And from April to October, where we launched, the decline rate was surprisingly very low. So obviously people are going to cancel, I'm paying monthly and I don't have access to it, but it was very, very slow. We lost them very slowly, but now we're hopefully going to gain them again when we start to publish stories. So that was very successful, and it actually gave us a boost of faith, knowing that people do believe in our vision.
Do you have any regulation? How are you regulated?
What do you mean?
Well, like IPSO or Impress or something like that.
I don't know. I'm Israeli. We don't follow rules and stuff like that, so I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
But since she's done national service, she could also kill all of us. So let's just draw a veil over that one. Has anybody got any questions? Because we are kind of out of time.
Just explain how articles will be commissioned. What's the commissioning process?
Can you rephrase it?
What's the commissioning process? How do you source articles? Do people pitch to you?
Oh, okay. So no, they don't pitch to us. They actually edit it on the website in a wiki-style platform. So if you go right now to Wikipedia, you can go to any entry and edit it and make the changes. We're not going to have a comment section. We don't want people to comment about our articles. If they have so many platforms to do that, we want them to actually contribute to it, so they can actually press the edit and add what they have to say. So it can be as minor as correcting a typo mistake, or adding, if I'm a love photography and I have photographs of insects and there is an article about it, I can actually add, everyone can add as much as they can, as much as they do in Wikipedia. So they actually directly.
But how does it get originated? How are stories originated? Can anyone originate a story?
Yes, definitely. We're going to find a model where the only problem might be when something happens right now, so we don't want 200 stories about the same thing launched at the same time by 200 people. So we're going to find a way to make the stories about the same thing together and maybe suggest the stories, but everyone can. Our vision is to treat the community volunteers and the high professional journalists as equals, so both can do everything, from thinking about the ideas of suggesting stories, editing them, improving them, fact-checking, everything. So obviously, again, as in Wikipedia, we're going to have, and with our journalists, we have junior journalists and we have more senior ones and we have the editors. So in our community, it's going to be the same. We're going to have the members that can actually suggest, and we have the more trusted with time, like the admins in Wikipedia that are going to have more privileges to actually, for instance, ban other if needed, or restrict them, or lock articles and so on. And so there's going to be this system.
Okay. We are out of time. If you've got questions, Orit will be around anyway. Here. I would like to segue neatly into whatever's happening next, but I can't because it was supposed to be coffee, so I'm going to throw Ian under the bus at this point.